Yo, what's good? It's a boy Dude Reviews and Pixar. 23 movies after how many years? God knows. I think it's about 25 years, to be honest with you. Pixar has had a lot of films, a lot of great stories, a lot of great plots, and the animation keeps getting better and better. But man, there are some films that I just prefer way more than others, and some films that I just don't like over others. And yeah, I don't really hate some of like the bottom eight Pixar films, but give an example. Look at something like the Charlie Brown's Christmas short. Such a short, and very stuttery animation, but I have ranked that film way higher than like the bottom eight Pixar films, just because some of the story elements in those bottom Pixar films just don't do it for me. But like the more up we go, the better the story and the better the animation goes. So without further ado, let's rank all 23 Pixar films from the worst to the best.
Who needs the quickie mart? I do.
Number 23, we've got Cars 2. Man, what a mess. This film was a mess in terms of story. The plot was just all over the place. Mater is such a irritating character. He's probably my least favorite character in the whole Cars franchise. Even Lightning McQueen isn't really that interesting, to be honest with you. None of the characters in this franchise are that likable, to be honest with you. I think some of the side characters like Sally and the two Italian car dudes are pretty cool, but I never really liked any of the car characters in these series, so having Mater was just a little bit, he's kind of insufferable, and Lightning McQueen is just so jerky. I thought this guy learned this lesson in the first film, but it looks like he didn't. He's even more of a jerk in this film. While the animation is a step up from the first film, I will admit the whole James Bond style of plot was kind of a mistake. I did prefer more of McQueen's story in these films because it is mainly about him, to be honest with you, which I did like. So yeah, it is pretty much last place. Number 22, we have got Onward. Now this film does have an interesting concept in terms of the plot. It's set in a magical realm where technology advances which have taken over, and Ian and Barley, two elven brothers, set out on an epic adventure to resurrect their late father for the day. I liked how the father was kind of shown in the film, like him just being a couple of pants, just him just being pants, and it was pretty funny, the gags with him. But apart from that, like, this film's comedy is so awkward and so insufferable, to be honest with you. None of it is funny. It's pretty bad. The story is so basic at most. It's just a copy paste Pixar slash Disney fantasy mess. Like, I'm not gonna lie, dude, I was kind of disappointed when I saw this film. I was expected to be blown away, but I'm guessing Pixar just kind of wanted to be a little bit, they wanted to tell different type of stories, but they could have made this film so much more enjoyable and engaging, but this film just never hit, to be honest with you. I didn't really like the whole world of the film. It just doesn't look visually appealing. It reminds me too much of Monsters Incorporated, and I just disliked that film as well. And while the animation was kind of beautiful, and Chris Pratt and Tom Holland do a really good job as the two brothers, their chemistry is fun, I just think the writing in terms of the comedy and the execution just didn't hit for me. It was awkward and kind of sloppy, and check out my full review of me kind of trashing this film. Number 21, and it's Cars 3. Much better than Cars 2 in my opinion. The plot is much better, it's faster, it's more energetic, and it's kind of like a passing of the torch to the next generation. And it's kind of a return to form from the first one. And yeah, I did like the first one quite a bit, but this film is a little bit of a downgrade in terms of the writing from the first one, but it's still pretty fun to watch, to be honest with you. The animation is gorgeous, the lighting on the cars, man, like the gloss and the gleam and the shine. It's one of those films that you kind of have to watch on Blu-ray because it just looks so glossy and shiny and just amazing, you know. And I flipping love this film. It's like Lightning McQueen kind of realizing that, man, he's an old timer now. You got this new generation of dudes and dudettes, and he's just realizing that he has to kind of retire. And I kind of like his relationship with Cruz, his successor. And this is possibly the first film that Lightning McQueen is probably the most likable out of all three of them. He's a lot less insufferable and less jerky in this film, and he's kind of a cool role model and a cool like father figure to Cruz, and it's pretty fun, but it just doesn't hit as hard as like the other films. It's kind of more or less the same generic film where you have the old timer trying to train the new generation, and it's kind of a cliche storyline in Hollywood. Number 20, we've got Finding Dory. Now this story is very heavily centered on Dory. No kidding, it's called Finding Dory, and I kind of like how Dory gets a lot more screen time. In the first film, she was kind of like this goofy sidekick, but you kind of feel sorry for her because, you know, the whole memory loss in the first film was kind of played for comedic effect, but in this film, it's kind of serious and very concerning, and it's kind of dark, to be honest with you, because she really has struggled remembering anything, to be honest with you, and she kind of gets herself in a lot of very dangerous situations when she forgets, and especially the flashbacks of when she was a kid was just damn when Disney animates cute, man, you just can't hate Dory for that. But to be honest with you, the plot wasn't as epic or as grand as the first film. I think the first film did it a little bit better, and the comedic moments were better in that film, although those three seals on the rock who were kind of pushing away their friend was kind of funny, to be honest with you. The film just doesn't hit as hard as the first film. It's not a bad film, it was just kind of a mediocre film. It didn't really do anything grand or interesting or new exciting. Sure, the animation on the fishes looked pretty cool when they were outside, it looked a lot more realistic, but apart from that, pretty disappointing flick, dude. Pretty disappointing. The Good Dinosaur places at number 19, and it does really remind me of Land Before Time, to be honest with you. I kind of get Littlefoot vibes from this main character Arlo, except Littlefoot was a little bit more manly and a bit more of a leader, less timid, to be honest with you. But yeah, this film I kind of liked because I like the relationship between Arlo and the human kid. I think Pixar, when it comes to character animation, this was probably the best one in terms of character animation on a human. This little boy doesn't say a single word, but every little facial like moment he has, every expression, every movement, you kind of feel what he's feeling and you understand him a little bit more without him even speaking, that is great character animation right there. Show don't tell, and well done Pixar for that. And I really did like the background shots, very realistic, very wow. And I kind of like the toony look in the realistic look. A lot of people didn't really like the kind of, you know, contrast between realism to kind of toony, but I think it kind of worked well in this film, to be honest with you. I did prefer the whole Arlo and little boy scenes, but every other scene was a little bit hokey. It felt way too much like The Lion King at times, and then it felt a little bit too much like Land Before Time, and it felt more or less like what I've seen before, and I think before was better than what I've seen in this film, to be honest with you. Good animation and good character interactions cannot help a really bland story. Number 18, we've got Cars Number 1 from 2006, and this film was pretty good. Like, Lightning McQueen as a character, I hate this guy, but the way they wrote him was really well done. Like, he's this hotshot race car driver who cares nothing about racing and winning, and he's just one of those dudes who's so self-centered and just only cares about himself and his own needs. But then he gets lost in a mysterious town called Radiator Springs, and he learns the true meaning of friendship and family. And this film was probably the best film in terms of like the side characters' interactions. You know, the side characters in the later car films don't really get that much screen time or development, apart from Mater, who's just not a fun guy. But this is probably the best film starring Mater, and to be honest with you, he's funny but also caring and lovable, and not as annoying as he is in the future film. Radiator Springs is such a beautiful place. Back in 2006, Pixar really were like the stars of like making background designs and like background panning shots. They look so beautiful. Doug Hudson's storyline and backstory was very emotional and intense, and damn, it kind of foreshadowed to what was going to happen in the future for Lightning McQueen as well. And just a fun film, to be honest with you. My only gripe with this film is that it does have a lot of corny car jokes written in this film, which is just kind of like, come on, guys. Number 17, we have Brave. Yeah, this film was pretty fun to watch, to be honest with you. I kind of watched it during the time I was kind of into Game of Thrones, and it was very Game of Thronesy like, and it was kind of up my alley, to be honest with you. I kind of like this this whole vibe. Like, I like the character designs. I like the father, the little brothers were also funny. They had a lot of really funny comedic gags in this film, particularly the bear. If you haven't seen the film, I probably wouldn't spoil it for you, but Merida obviously does something and she has to kind of like reverse the spell in order to save someone very close to her. Already made a full review of this film. It's a pretty funny film at times, has a lot of like dark scenes and elements, but I kind of thought it was a bit too short. I felt like the first half was really good, but then it kind of goes a bit like, what? The story kind of goes a bit all over the place, and it goes from being kind of this really grounded film to kind of being very Looney Toony, to be honest with you. Number 16, we got A Bug's Life. Yeah, this film was pretty fun to watch, to be honest with you. All the characters are all so memorable and they all have very great scenes and they're all fun to watch, especially the circus troupe. The circus guys are so fun to watch. They're really funny as well. Flick is just such a relatable dude, to be honest with you. But the thing with this film that I don't like is the animation. It's very dated. It hasn't aged well at all. The shine, the lighting, the textures look kind of funky looking and a bit kind of gets, kind of takes you out of the film. Even the grasshoppers look awful in this film, to be honest with you. That caterpillar makes me want to throw up. It looks disgusting. And I don't like the whole cliche that Hollywood films have where the main character lies to a group of people to impress them and then they find out the truth, and then it's kind of a cliche. I don't know what it's called in Hollywood, but they shouldn't have done that in this film. Very bad. Number 15, we got Monsters Inc. I really like the whole concept of how the kids are kind of like seen as the bad villains of this story, and like how the monsters are the good guys, to be honest with you. Like kind of seeing it from the monsters' perspective and how they need their screams to kind of generate power, which is such a different take on these type of stories. The final scene is pretty fun, to be honest with you, but I mean, apart from some really fun character interactions, this film is kind of a bore to watch. I never really look forward to rewatching this film. It does have an interesting plot, but it just doesn't hit as hard as the other films, to be honest with you. I would have put it much lower on the list, but I kind of do prefer the main characters in this film over the previous films in the Pixar list, to be honest with you, which kind of boosts this film up a lot more. And their sequel film is probably the better one, to be honest with you. Number 14, we've got Finding Nemo. I can't believe this film is the best-selling DVD of all time. That is crazy. But the fact that I actually owned a Pixar film on DVD is kind of telling you something that, yeah, it is the best-selling DVD of all time. I like how the film starts with Marlon being this kind of like paranoid dad who's just very concerned about Nemo because pretty much his entire family were wiped out when Nemo was a baby, so he is just very overprotective of Nemo, and when he goes missing, he is just like, where is he, he is just on a mission, and him and Dory's friendship is just really fun to watch. It's a really cool adventure, and Nemo has his adventure as well. It's pretty fun to watch sort of both sides, but we kind of watch it more for Marlon and Dory, to be honest with you. Dory is the one who kind of steals the show for you, and all the actors in the film do a really good job, and for a 2003 film, animation is pretty stellar, I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty mind-blowing that this is a 2003 film. Monsters University is at number 13, and I love the whole origin story of Mike and Sully. The first film was kind of centered on Sully being the main character, and then Mike was kind of more or less sort of like that kind of annoying side character, and now Mike is kind of the main character of this film, and Sully is kind of like the annoying side character, which is kind of a nice neat twist, to be honest with you. The monster designs in this film kind of boost this film up for me because I love the way these monsters look. The world is so much better in this film than in the first one. It's so much colorful and vibrant, and the side characters are really fun to watch, and just such a really kind of fun, cool film. I like the tournament in this film. It's really fun to watch. I love tournament stuff. Reminds me of anime. And the humor is also really good as well. I can't believe how funny this film is. It's actually funnier than the first film, and also kind of darker than the first film. There's a lot of really dark scenes in this film, and I was like, I'm happy they made this film a prequel and not a sequel, because I don't think it setting after the events of the first one would have worked well, because you know what happens at the end of the first film. It works better it being in the past, to be honest with you, and the past is always darker. Yeah, number 12 up. Yeah, we know the like the first 10 minutes of this film. It's really emotional and makes you want to cry. But the more times I've seen this film, the more I'm just kind of over and done with the first 10 minutes. But to be honest with you, I'm not gonna lie, those first 10 minutes are probably the highlight of the film, because the entire film is kind of this generic adventure story. It's still a really fun watch, to be honest with you, and it's really interesting and engaging. And I like the relationship between Carl and the little boy. Carl, I forgot the kid's name, Russell I think it's called. He's called, not it, sorry, you're a person, not a thing. And the balloon house was really cool to look at. Like, man, like it looks so cool, but I don't think that's very realistic. You would need a lot more balloons to lift the house up, my friend. The background designs would really work in this film. I loved the really stylized characters. Like, yeah, Carl's design was really cool, his being really boxy like, while Russell was very round. Just a really fun film to watch, but it isn't that impressive. That I think the first 10 minutes are like the highlights of this film, but the rest of the film is fun to watch, but it just doesn't hit as much as the first 10 minutes. Number 11, we have got Ratatouille. A kind of weird, crazy, but really heartwarming film about this rat who wants to just become a chef. His and Alfredo's friendship is just one to really watch, and I'm not gonna lie, that dude reminds me of someone from my uni, and every time I see this film I just can't stop seeing him in this role, to be honest with you. Paris has never looked so beautiful in this film. I mean, my gosh, the way Pixar rendered Paris to look was just great, and I love this whole story. It's just such a fun and engaging film, you know. It's just really enjoyable and you don't get bored watching it. Although the whole idea of rats being chefs just seems so impractical and kind of disgusting, to be honest with you. It just was a realistic film. Don't remake it, Disney. Number 10, we got Inside Out, and it's just such a fun film. Like, man, the comedy and the dramatic moments are just, when the comedy is in this film, it's so high, and when the dramatic moments come, it is just like so dramatic. It keeps going from one extreme to the next, and it's just wow. The emotions are all got interesting character, and they're all so cool. I do prefer like joy and sadness. Sadness is just such a gloomy character, and she's kind of a killjoy, to be honest with you. But Joy is just kind of a bit too sporadic, to be honest with you, and after a while you kind of get sick and tired of seeing her, to be honest with you. But I kind of like how they do represent what Riley is thinking of, like the whole trip from Minnesota, to be honest with you. It used to be one of my favorite Pixar films, but it kind of got a bit down on the list because I guess the more times I watched it, the more it just didn't hit as hard as the first time I watched it. It's one of those films you should probably watch twice, and that's about it. Don't watch it any more than that, because it will kind of ruin the experience and the emotions you had with this film. No pun intended. Toy Story 1 is at number 9, and yeah, it's probably the lowest ranking film in the whole Toy Story series, but it's still pretty high on the Pixar list overall. I guess because the animation doesn't look as nice or as clean as the later films, to be honest with you, but the story is all really good, to be honest with you. I love the plot, I love the characters, I love the origin story, seeing how they all came about in this film. And it's kind of nostalgic looking at it, especially the song, especially when you watch that old VHS trailer of the film. Man, it really hits the nostalgia feels, man. Toy Story 2 comes out number 8, and just like this first one, it's just as good, but I think the plot is a lot more engaging. I really did like Woody and Buzz's kind of like character development, Buzz being more of a leader, Woody kind of discovering who he is, who he kind of wants to be in the future, which is all good. All the side characters like Jessie are so fun and really engaging, and has a lot of funny moments, a lot of pop culture reference like Star Wars, and it's ironic how Disney buys Star Wars later on. WALL-E comes in at number 7, and this film, man, wow, what an interesting choice of story for this film, but it really works. I mean, this feels more like an adult film. It's very more for the grown-ups than for the kids, but man, those first 40 minutes of the film, no dialogue whatsoever, but you kind of understand exactly what's happening. And WALL-E and E's relationship is just such a joy to watch, and him going to space and him finding the humans and seeing how humanity is like the way it is, it kind of concerns me, because I can see this actually happening in the real world, and damn, that is concerning. My only gripe with this film is that the more times I watch it, the more I'm starting to see how the rendering doesn't look as nice. Like the character on WALL-E looks a little bit the lighting doesn't look as great, to be honest with you, which is kind of a disappointment, but it is what it is. Number 6, Toy Story 4. Yeah, this film is beautiful. My gosh, like this is definitely the best looking Toy Story film out of all of them. Man, it's glossy. Man, the animation's great. The story is so engaging. It feels more like an epilogue to the whole trilogy, to be honest with you. It's more of Woody going through this crisis of like wanted to be wanted and needed by children, and he hasn't really gotten over Andy, to be honest with you, and the new kid just doesn't really care about him. She's more about this Fork and Jesse, and Forky is just suicidal maniac. Aaron, is that you? And man, like he's just such a pathetic looking character, but he's really funny to watch. And I like the whole story. I like the new characters, but I feel like then there's a bit too. I think there's just too many new characters in this film, because a lot of the original side characters from the first 3 films kind of get pushed to the side, and we don't see them as much. And I kind of miss seeing them. But it is more a Woody story than like an Andy story, to be honest with you. The Incredibles 2, and man, Helen really takes the starring role in this film. Like she's kind of like this main superhero, while the dad is the Bob. He's just kind of like the mom of the film, and it's really funny. And I really did like the film, and I liked the development of the characters. It felt pretty much like a part 2 of the first one. It felt very good. Like the writing was really good. I felt like the twist with the villain was a little bit hokey, but the entire film itself was just really fun to watch. It had a lot of very fun sequences, like the train scene, and a lot of sequences in the house was really fun to watch. And it's more or less like the first film, to be honest with you. Number 4, we got Toy Story 3, and Andy is going to college, and just seeing where this film took place in, and it was released in 2010, and while the first one was 1995, I feel like the audience pretty much grew up with Andy. So it is interesting seeing, like, you know, Andy going to college, and it's just kind of like it's the end of an era, and it has a lot. It's probably the best one when it comes to like the comedy and like the writing. It is definitely more dramatic than the other films, especially that furnace scene. Man, that's crazy. You should check out my full review of this film. I've done it, but such a fun film to watch, and sad and emotional. But man, like this kid kind of was a little bit too sentimental with his toys when he was giving it to the little kid. Dude, come on. Number 3, we've got a new Pixar film, and that is Soul. Man, this film really hit, especially in 2020. Like, this main character called Joe, whose life isn't really going the way he expected, and his true passion is jazz, and he's really good at it, and he wants to be the best of the best, and he has this goal and dream to play with his idol. But when he travels to another realm to help someone find their passion, he discovers what it means to have a soul, and he starts seeing that, is my dream really my purpose in life? And yeah, you should check out my full review of this film, because I dive deep into this film, and man, this film is just, it really hits. The animation in the Soul world is just so beautiful and very Picasso, especially those weird sentient beings, while the real world is so real and gritty and grounded. I like the design on Joe and the rest of the characters is really fun, and there's a lot of funny comedic moments in, and it's just a really fun film, one that's very rewatchable, to be honest with you. But coming in at number 2, we have The Incredibles, the first one. Man, this is probably one of my favorite superhero films out of all of them. Man, it's just such a fun film to watch. The villain is great, has a cool twist and turns. The family are also cool and memorable. Their powers are so cool and unique. The writing on all of them is great. It feels very real at times, you know, the way they're written. It doesn't feel like a cartoon. It feels more like a live action film. Like, it doesn't feel catered to kids. It feels more for like everyone, to be honest with you, which I really did like. And it has a lot of really cool messages and morals of the story in this film, and it's just such a fun film to watch, and it's action packed, and it's got a lot of cool moments. But coming in at number 1, we have Coco from 2017. This is definitely the best Pixar film out of all of them. You know why? Story, amazing. Heartwarming, funny, comedic moments, all of them just land. I love the world of the dead. It's just, it's kind of freaky, yet very fun. Like, I kind of want to see what this world is like, but I don't want to actually live there at the same time. It's kind of weird. It kind of reminds me of Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island at times for some reason when they go to the land of the dead, because there are a lot of like skeleton jokes in the film, and it I don't know why I'm reminded of Scooby-Doo at times, but this film is just such a blast to watch. Like Miguel and his passion of becoming a pop star and him going to the world, and the twists in the film and the character writing and the development. Oh man, oh man, oh man, this film is for me. This film is possibly the most rewatchable Pixar film. And to be honest with you, if I'm honest, I don't really like the Pixar movies, to be honest with you. I feel like the top 9 of the Pixar films are probably like the best, in fact the top 10 in my list. The rest I'm just kind of not really fussed about. Like, they're kind of ordinary generic movies, but from number 10 upwards, these are the films that I want to see again, that I want to rewatch, to be honest with you. They're really fun, they really got good messages and very heartwarming, and animation's great, and this film is no exception. But tell me in the comments down below what you thought about this list. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Like this video, subscribe for more anime, manga, Pixar, Disney, Marvel, and all those cool jazz reviews. With that, I say thank you for watching, and as always, Boarded Reviews signing out.